Okay, so we've just left off with the introduction, and no, the first thing I was going to start was variables. So I'm going to create a new PHP document. For some reason, some really bizarre reason, my computer's just gone really slow. At a loss as to why. Like, there's nothing going on. Well, obviously it's a little bit slow now because this recorder's running, but I don't know. God knows. Who knows? And also, something's not quite right here. Don't know. Oh well. Let's just crack on. Right, okay. First thing you know that I've done is these opening and closing tags. Small and sign $PHP. Now that's the opening tag for any snippet of PHP code. Now I'm not going to use HTML in this is just going to confuse it all. So all I'm going to have is this block of code. Okay, and then you've also got greater than sign. Okay. So what this tag actually does is it. Imagine you had a document, okay, index.php. So it's the index file in your web server root. Okay, so it's going to be the first document that's loaded. That document is HTML. Okay, and majority of that is HTML before you even take into consideration the PHP. And what we're going to do, as explained earlier, is change the HTML that is displayed. Okay, so we're going to change the HTML document. So our snippets of code are usually going to fall into a layout of HTML. For instance, you might have a template and change the content, for instance. So your PHP falls within the HTML. So what this tag does is it basically says this little bit here, this is going to have a bit of PHP, so that when PHP actually has a look at the document, it can go through and go, right, I need to look at that bit, I need to sort that, okay, that bit's HTML, and there's another opening tag, this bit I need to sort out, this is another section of PHP. So it just allows it to understand which parts of the document you want it to process. Okay, so that starts it off, and that tells it can stop processing now until another one of those comes up. There is another way you can do it. A lot of people do it like that, and they think that's okay to do it. It can be. For good practice, I always put PHP. However, that does work. As you can see, Dreamweaver is giving me code hint in there, or highlighting. So it does work and it's fine. I can't really. For some reason, I have a big bugbear against it. But, for instance, there is another way. If perhaps you just wanted to output a line, you can do this to actually echo a statement. So, hello. So what that's going to do is that's going to put the word hello to the document. Okay, I'm going to go into this in a second. But that is a quicker way. Instead of doing the opening and closing and then put in echo hello, it's a lot quicker to do that. Now, the reason I can't practice what I preach is because that is what's called a short tag. So I'm not really doing too well there. I don't like the fact that people use short tags, but I use them to echo out short snippets of code. What you got to make sure is that your server is set up to allow these short tags, and then do what you like, really. But for me personally, I'll always open with PHP. Right, so variables. This is a comment, okay? I'm going to write down little bits of information that might come in handy along the way, just little ways of remembering certain bits of information. I'll make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so the $sign tells PHP that the following characters are the name of our variable, i.e. foo. Okay, so $, foo, that is our variable. Now, usually when you set up a variable like this, you'll assign a value, and to do that, you'll do space equals space. I'm going to put this as hello world. Notice how I put hello world in quotation marks. That's because it is a string. Therefore, PHP expects it to be enclosed in some form of quotation marks. Now, that can be single quotations. That's not a problem. One thing I will note about quotations, for instance, in here I can now put a href equal to, so I could put an anchor in here, and I could do I could put a link to Google. Okay, now that's fine. However, if I change these to double quotations, look what my code highlighting does. It says, hold on, something's not quite right here. The reason for that is because you've opened with double quotations, but you needed the double quotations for the href, or the referring link within the anchor tag. So what it's done is it's gone, well, you started here and you finished here, but then you've got all of this information. Then we've got to two forward slashes, which, as I said earlier, means you're commenting. So I'm getting really confused about what you're doing. So there is a way to counteract that, and you can put a backslash in front of any double quotations that are within the quotation marks here. Okay, so just little things like that. Without knowing it, you could cause yourself a few problems. That's the only reason why I've mentioned it. Okay, so we've got our variable with a value assigned. The variable's foo. Okay. Now, as I spoke a little bit about earlier, let's go about that for now. As I spoke a little bit about earlier, when I was talking about the short tags, there's a quicker way just to echo it out. What I was talking about echoing, in order to output something to the document, you will need to use an echo statement. The reason for that is PHP, all of this code inside here, all PHP is concerned it's doing is processing this information. It's not putting anything to the screen. That's not what it's there to do. PHP will only put something to the screen or to the document if you ask it to do so, which is what echo is. Okay, so we assign the variable foo with the $, and that is its value. Notice how I put a semicolon on the end there. That's just to tell PHP that you've opened a variable. You've said, I want a new variable. It is going to be called foo. The value of it is going to be hello world. I'm closing this variable. Okay, that is basically the sign to say remember that. Okay, but it is used throughout PHP. It's just to say that that is the end of that line. There's no more code. That bit's finished. Moving on to the next bit. Okay, so you'll see it used throughout PHP. When we go to after we've done our first little project, we'll have a look into other instances. For instance, statements. Statements don't use this because they wrap their own, and functions, when you declare a function, they'll wrap their own content, but the content inside it still needs to be closed off. But again, you'll come to see that. Right, okay. So I could do one of two things. I can echo out hello world. Now if we save this, I've got, let's just show you this. I've got my htdocs folder. There's a lot of stuff in here, but we're going to be working out of this 12 folder. What that's going to link to is www.server12.com, and that's the folder that I've created for the first tutorial. So this is what we're going to be working out of. At the moment it's kind of thinking it. I'm just going to save this document, which will be called index.php. Okay. Now the .php extension basically tells the server that this document is to be processed by the PHP engine. Okay. If it was .html, then the server wouldn't ask PHP to process the file. Alright. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what that gives us. There you go, that gives us hello world. Okay, so inside here, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to change these to single quotations. Just as a general practice for putting in HTML, I generally use single tags, single quotations, sorry. So we can output it in any way, shape or form in terms of HTML, anything like that. We can output it in any single way we like. Okay, but it is just as easy to put it like that. So we'll see two of them now. Which is why you're gonna, and this is, I've mentioned this because you might be losing a little bit of faith now, thinking, well, what am I learning? You are learning. You're learning the fundamentals. Okay, we're not going to achieve much in this tutorial apart from you understanding important parts of PHP. They're not going to do anything yet until you combine them all, but you need to stick with it just so you can understand what part the variables play in programming. Okay, so we've got that, and that's nice and well, but there is another way we can output the statement hello world. Okay, we can actually refer to our variable. So if we put the pound sign again, almost said that, not 00, it's 00, and we echo foo, and my code hinting doesn't want to work for me today. There was nothing wrong with that statement, thank you very much. It's just having a little bit of a funny. Okay, so there you go, it's echoed hello world. Now, if for instance we wanted to change this to say bar, we can change the variable and it will change what it outputs, because this is essentially equal to foo is equal to bar. Okay, so that's all it is. Whatever is inside these quotations is what that will be equal to. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the point of that? I might as well just write it. Okay, I'm going to show you an instance of that. I am going to make myself a little form, a little page thing. Just bear with me just a moment. This is, and then I'm going to do that. I will explain this in just a moment. You plonker, Rodney. Okay. You notice we did something here. We closed the quotation, so we've got H1 this is, and then we closed it. We did a space, and then we did a dot. Now what that dot is doing, what it allows us to do is change from a string to a variable, or a line of, or a function, or something along those lines, and then use it again to go back into a string. Okay, so that's what that's used for. It's called concatenation, I think, which basically means this is a single line, however it's got two different types of information in it. So there you go. In fact, I'm going to go into it a little bit now. You can also, using single quotations, not double quotations. Double quotations won't work, but inside single quotations, you can just put the variable. Okay, PHP will read that and go, okay, that's a variable because it's started with the $sign. Okay, name is a web developer from England, UK. Name is trying however poorly to teach punctuation PHP. Okay, now if we have a look at our page, I think I may have just got that the wrong way around, so bear with me. Let's just check that. Yeah, I did get that the wrong way around. Take back what I just said. You can't use variables inside a string if you're using single quotations. You can if you're using double quotations. I always get that the wrong way around because I don't do it. I always concatenate. It just makes it easier for me to see where variables are. Because you see inside this, Dreamweaver automatically colours strings in red, but it colours variables in a bluey colour. Okay, now it hasn't coloured that in a bluey colour because it's within a string, which is irritating. I like to see where my variables are, so it takes a little bit longer, but I'd rather concatenate it. I've just shown you another way to do it. It's entirely up to you how you do it. Okay, let's go back to here. Now there's three weird things on this page. It says, notice, undefined variable name in, and that's my server disk ht.docs folder, folder 12, the folder that we're in, and the document that we're writing. And it's also told me that it's on line 7, so if I go back to line 7, that's where I've put in the variable. So what it's telling me is, you've called a variable. Notice that I've called it because there's no equal signs afterwards like there was with foo. So I've called the variable, however the variable doesn't have a value, it's not been set. Okay, now what I could do, I believe, is do that. I can't do that. If I set it to true, it's going to make it 1. Okay. Hold on, there's a space there. Okay. Now, what true is, without the quotations, it's what's called a bool value. Okay, B-O-O-L, or a Boolean value. Okay, so that can also be false. Okay, if the value is false, okay, we've still declared the value because we've given it a value, but what we've told PHP is that there is no value. There's no value to it, but we've defined it. Okay. Alternatively, we could do double quotations, and that would define our variable but not give it a value. However, if you do use true, like I just did, true means anything that isn't 0 or nothing. Okay, so true has to be a number greater than 0 or a string. It can't just be nothing or 0. Okay, I believe it's also false if it's below 0. So if it's a minus number, then it's also false. Okay. That's just to look into bool values. So I can set this to false, and you'll notice it gets rid of my errors. Okay. Now that's because PHP was moaning at me before because name didn't have a value or it wasn't defined. Okay. Now we've defined it, but we haven't given it a value. But we may as well, while we're at it, just give name a value. I'm going to use my name. So I'm going to put Josh in there. Now watch what happens with this information that we've just... Bear with me a second. My resolution isn't going to like this screen recorder. Oh dear. There you go. This is Josh's page. Josh is a web developer from England, UK. Josh is trying, however poorly, to teach PHP. Okay, so what it's done is ignore that bit I've just done, is it's taken name and it's put name, or the value of name, wherever I've asked it to, in two different ways of asking it. It's put it in three places for me. Okay, and what this means, I mean, I could have just gone along and put my name in there anyway, but if, for instance, it wasn't a name we were using and it was an age, and I was saying, for instance, I'm 20 years old, I could put in that I'm 20 and go on about how 20, whatever, use it a number of times within the document, but then what happens when I turn 21? I then need to change that, okay? So that gets a little bit irritating, but what it allows me to do, if my name was Fred, it could be, never know, then I can just change that to Fred, and all of a sudden this is Fred's page. Okay. Now this is why variables can be very useful. What it allows you to do, for instance, if I wanted to if I put let's do single quotations because I'm going to put an anchor in here. Oh, let me close that paragraph tag. Okay, now it's having a go at me because I've got an undefined variable. Okay, but what it's allowing me to do is make a link. Right, if I click this link, it's just going to come back to this page because if we have a look at the element itself, if my computer wasn't being so slow, href doesn't have a value, but we've set a value here. But again, because we haven't defined the variable that we're using, PHP is thrown as an error, and it's also not put anything in there. Okay, so we're going to define URL to and I'm also going to change this to it's because I used double quotations and I closed it with single. So this is a better example of it. Catch Fred at his website, http www.google.com. If I click that, it will go to Google. But what if I change my website address and actually it's Yahoo? Now I could go in and I could change that here. I could set that to Yahoo, but then I also have to go in and change it here. Now this is only important because in a website you have a lot of documents, and there is a way of storing important variables like this cross pages. Okay, so it's not just inside the one document. You can get PHP to remember it for an awful lot longer, and throughout an awful lot of documents. So all you'd have to do is go into one document, change the value of URL, and throughout your website all the links, everything that you're linking to on your page will be changed from the old address to the new address, which is brilliant if you're moving servers. Okay, so that's what that allows us to do. Now hopefully I've covered what I feel is the most important parts of variables, just so you can understand how they work, and hopefully we can move on to the next part. which will be, if I can remember, it's either functions, or was I going to do, no, I was going to do operators next. So we'll have a little bit of a look into PHP's maths, so we can have a look at some of these operators. Okay, and we're also going to have a bit of a quick look at the if statement as well, which is very useful and gets used an awful lot. Okay, so that's all for this one, and I'll see you shortly on the next one.